are joined right now live by Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. And I want to go right to Senator Graham. Senator Graham, you have, thank you for joining us. You got this letter off to General Milley directly, along with Congressman Waltz, directly asking him about what is being reported that is in this book, the two different phone calls, October 30th and January 8th. How important do you think getting to the bottom of this is for the American people, for Congress to do? Because especially this warning, and no one's really denying it. In fact, they're trying to paper over it. We heard even John Kirby say that he saw this and he didn't have any issues with that. It's pretty shocking to hear that when it's being reported that a general may have been giving warnings or promising warnings to the Chinese without authority.
Well, number one, what's in the book is very disturbing. It would be undercutting civilian control of the military. It is to phone calls that are, go against the idea of civilian control of the military. And there's the book, okay? So you know what I like about Jay Sekulow? You know what I like about the whole system over here is that the rule of law actually does work if you allow it to work. So I'm not going to try General Milley based on some book. And, a lot of this stuff in books in the past have turned out to be nothing. So what do? I go back to the old South Carolina way of doing business. Let's talk to the guy, hear his side of the story, then I'll tell you what I think. So I'm not going to try him in the media. I'm not going to try him based on a book. So I expect to set up a meeting sooner rather than later with General Milley, let him walk me through both phone calls, what happened, what was said, the content of the phone call, then I'll get back to you. It's important that he explain himself to me and Congressman Waltz. It's important he explain himself to the Congress on September the 28th, but it's also important that we take a deep breath here and not go crazy over an excerpt in a book.
Well, we know. I mean, Senator Graham, as you know, we all have gotten very familiar with these transcripts and call transcripts and what was actually said and what's being reported, and I agree with you 100%. It seems like the part that's being papered over right now by the people who are commenting that say that they had any knowledge of this or maybe they were in the room is they haven't denied anything. That's the interesting part about this so far is that they haven't come out and said that wasn't accurate about the warning to the Chinese. Is that the focus area? I mean, I can understand phone calls between a chairman of Joint Chiefs and the head of the Chinese military if that's a normal kind of procedure. It wouldn't seem that odd. It's more the content.
Yeah, totally. It's all about the content. The way this thing's portrayed in the book is that Milley just got on the phone one day and called the Chinese and said, we got a crazy guy here who's president. I promise you we're not going to attack you, but if we try to attack you, I'll give you a heads up. Well, let's see if that holds up. Okay, these are sensational phone calls. Let's see if it holds up to be sensational. Let's see, was it coordinated? Did General Milley have other people in the room? Did he let people know what was going on? Were other countries worried about what was going on? What did Nancy Pelosi say to General Milley? What did the Speaker of the House call General Milley up and ask about? So here's what I expect. I expect General Milley to explain himself. I hope that he'll get a chance to explain himself. I hope he'll have documents proving what he did and when he did it. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, the Jay Sekulow, Lindsey Graham way. Remember they wanted to impeach the president based on a phone call? Yep. Remember that?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's why I get sensitive, too, Senator, when everybody talks about transcripts. I think the right people can have access to these transcripts and make the call because I guess the next question, if everything is accurate, if this is because it's not it's basically a sentence, whether or not that phrase was said or not, what happens then? What should happen next?
So one, I want to know the content and the context of the content. And I want to know, was the system working? Was this a system decision or was this a rogue general's decision? Okay, remember how they focused on one line in the phone call with President Trump?
Absolutely.
I think one or two lines. Well, here's what happened. The Ukraine got the aid. Nothing was turned off. They got the aid and nobody got fired. So the bottom line is what I want to do is put the content, understand what was said and the context in which it was said, and see if the system was involved or was this some rogue individual. Look at the phone call with President Trump. You had people on the phone call, right?
Yep.
The system worked. The president has every right to push for aggressive investigation of corruption. Joe Biden was vice president, and his son, Hunter Biden, was sitting on the board of the most corrupt company in the Ukraine, and I think that's fair game. So the bottom line is I will meet with General Milley in the coming days. I will hear his side of the story, and he will testify to the country under oath about what he did. And I would just say to everybody, take a deep breath, because it may be hard to believe sometimes books written in Washington are not accurate.
Well, listen, this whole team that you're talking to, Senator, we understand that, and we appreciate what you're doing to get to the bottom of it, to get to the facts. That's where everything can move from there. And the talk,
Facts, right. And if he did something wrong, then he'll have the consequences come his way. There's a narrative being formed here that bothers the heck out of me. Joe Biden's administration is blaming Trump for his decision, and that the generals agreed with him to withdraw. Number one, President Trump did not withdraw all of our forces on January the 20th. We had 2,500 people in Bagram Air Base. Bagram Air Base was owned by the Americans. It was a conditions-based withdrawal. The Taliban were violating the conditions. The Biden administration could have easily said, all bets are off, no deadline, you got to change your behavior. It was President Biden who decided to pull all our forces out. And when they claim that our military was on board, that's a lie. And I'm going to prove this. I'm going to prove that the commander-in-chief was given sound military advice that we should stay at Bagram, we should have a residual force as an insurance policy against another 9/11, and it was President Biden who did this, not the generals.
This, to me, Senator, final question to you. That seems to be the most important issue, is that I don't want everybody to get too distracted, because there's still the huge issue of Afghanistan, which is so important.
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more. We're not going to let him get off the hook. Joe Biden, President Biden, was given sound military advice. Here's what happens if you pull the plug on Afghanistan. It all came true. And the Obama administration pulled the plug on Iraq, and the military said, if you do that, ISIS will take over. They did. 2,000 people killed, 20 countries attacked. Afghanistan's going to be worse. But they're trying to blame Trump. It wasn't Trump's decision. It was Biden's decisions. They're trying to blame the generals, and I can promise you I'm not going to let this go.
Senator Graham, thank you so much for spending some time with our audience today to talk through this. Thank you, Senator.